people are watching nowadays. But when it comes to something of substance, then it's crickets. Even the people, and the only time you get response is from the people who are the advocators, the people who are the social people in the communities, people are, community activists and etc. So again, it validates my point that black people concern themselves with the wrong thing. You know how many memes were created and how many memes were reposted about the whole Usher? They used all his songs about him having herpes, and then come to find out the truth that this precious looking chick was a scammer, and she had been doing it to many other artists and celebrities. But
well, how much of that? Not to cut you, but how much of that was people capitalizing on an issue that could create followers for them? I mean, the memes were all about making fun of the situation, so people were racing. I mean, that's just the nature of how social media works. Mm-hmm. If there's a hot topic or something's going on, the race to be the wittiest, the funniest, the most ratchet, have the most, crazy response, that starts to drive, the conversation and the thought behind it. And so it's less about we want to get to the bottom of it, and it's more about entertaining. I find, I'm on Twitter in a very limited fashion, but I find that people have created whole followings and identities off of other people's pain or other people's scandal or misery. And there's a lot of people that are very good at it. I mean, I marvel at people who can come up with a really witty caption, like within minutes of watching Power or seeing breaking news about something. So I think it's more on that. I think it's just more about the way that social media works, and I feel like it's starting to mislead us in thinking that is our, like, Black Twitter is not the full identity of black people. Right. Black Twitter represents a voice of a young, fresh voice that of people who don't necessarily have to be a celebrity to be heard, and sometimes they use that voice for empowerment and for social justice. Other times they use it for a laugh, but it's really not like the sum total of the African American community, because that limits us for all the different, diverse sectors of who we are as a people.
Mm-hmm. You're making some good points. I can't argue with you on that. But it's just that what you're saying is common sense and factual. But common sense ain't common no more. And the majority, let's be fair. Look on your timeline right now and see how much tomfoolery you see. Thank you. And compared to what's of substance. And I agree with you. People use that social media to gain followers, for entertainment, for whatever bullshit they feel like they need to use it for. I totally understand it. But when it comes
also with I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, when it comes to critical and when it comes to real life scenarios and situations, we become very, very quiet. Like when it comes to real shit, we don't like. Here's the thing, people. The whole Black Lives Matter movement. Let's get onto this. The whole Black Lives Matter movement was the only thing, to me, social media had relevance for since social media has been in effect, because it brought attention, it brought awareness to. We wouldn't even know when Philando got murdered by the police if it wasn't for Facebook Live. Okay, so when Black Lives Matter took over, or it was created, it was founded on the purpose of we need to let people who don't understand that Black Lives Matter. Cool. Mm-hmm. Then the whole demographics changed to Black Lives Matter being labeled as a terrorist organization because it fueled the wrong people. Mm-hmm. It went from people with like-minded individuals to all the collectiveness of the same people who still think Usher has herpes, still think R. Kelly is out here housing young teenage girls, still think that Joel Osteen was wrong. You still got these same people out here with those mindsets. And so that's how that it's a shame that we're easily influenced. But I've never seen Woody Allen publicly humiliated about him and young Mia Farrow. And this was before social media. But you have all these white celebrities and public. Charlie Sheen might have been the most humiliating outside of 45. But you didn't see him getting dragged in social media like that. And it wasn't the focus, and it wasn't on everybody's timeline. But let it be somebody black. And oh my God, we got to put him on a public fire. You know, everybody wants to make Bobby Valentino out here, you know, liking transgenders and shit like that. We don't know that man's personal business. And if it's come to be true, who really gives a shit at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I would say, like, the beauty of social media is that you can curate who you follow. So if you follow people that are focused and obsessed with the things that you're not interested in the topics that doesn't really, you know, resonate with you, you don't have to follow them because, like I said, you know, or I've said, you know, to other people, like, the loudest voice in the room is usually the one that's the most over the top, the most ratchet. This is a horrible. Okay, I probably should not use. I'm not going to use this analogy because it's going to be totally misconstrued.
No, do it. That's what it's here for.
I mean, you can have a room full of you have a room full of 30 women. And 29 of those women are your stereotypical good girls. Mm-hmm. You know, dressed conservatively and all of that. But if you have one of those women that's dressed pretty slutty, scantily clad, guess who gets all the attention?
The ratchet
that
woman.
You
damn right. You damn right.
So, right. But so then it automatically makes the majority completely invisible because now you have one person dominating the conversation, dominating the attention. All the men are gravitating towards that woman. And so that's kind of similar in terms of how we, you know, deal with pop culture headlines in the news cycle. It's like there could be people in the trenches. You know, there are, you know, out of what's happening in Houston, there's huge movements on the grassroots level of people organizing donation efforts, relief efforts, rescues, and things like that. People are coming together, and you know that is happening. And but the one thing that gets the attention is the scandal. So I would just say we have to kind of look at the media with a sense of balance and a grain of salt, and kind of you can mute some of the voices that you don't want to be hearing all the time. That's not saying be oblivious. That means that you don't have to follow every gossip blog or magazine or whatever that's going to be putting out things that you consider garbage, because you know it is there is a lot of good happening. I wanted to go back to something you had said about like when you post something about, you know, the way that people respond to your post, if it's something about religion. Or Joel Osteen. You know, religion for Black people is a button for, you know, that's one of our hot buttons, because we are obsessed with religion, and that kind of forms our social values and our morals and things like that. So I don't think it's just a Black thing. I think all cultures, because religion has always been used to justify a lot of bad things. So when people I think you mentioned earlier on your call with the other woman, you know, when people defended Eddie Long and things like that. Yes, that's religious culture. That's people who have, you know, feel a sense of ownership of their past. You know, they say, "Don't talk about my past. You can't talk about my past." You know, that type of thing. And that you're always going to get that response. Like that's not even really just a Black thing. If you talk about something in the Jewish community, then you'll have the Jewish folks to come out and be very adamant about that topic, or the Muslim community or Buddhist. Like that is a very personal, you know, thing, and I don't think it doesn't really compare to it's not going to bring out the emotion that, you know, if you were to post a story on, you know, the FEMA being done away with, nobody's going to react that much to it, especially if they haven't experienced it. And of course, since it happened before the storm, it's also probably not going to get people's emotions. So I just think that you're hard on people, Sean. I really do.
Me?
I think, yes, I do. I think your opinion is you're hard on people.
Let me tell you why. I'm hard on people because a great friend of mine said this, that I'm big on common sense, and that it eats me up that the lack of common sense that doesn't exist in our culture nowadays. And it irks my soul that people are on social media are the judge and the fucking jury, and that people look to that for their everyday advice. They look for that to be their source, and like we're out of touch with and out of sync with each other. And I'm very hard and critical. Now, I'm not judgmental. That's the difference. I just don't like dumb shit. And so when I see dumb shit, whether it's black, brown, green, and yellow, because if you get a chance to listen to my show more often, I hope I got a new follower, a new listener. I talk about all races and all dumb shit. But what bothers me the most is that we as a people, we don't take time to do the research to make sure. There was a story of a young lady that's supposed to have been quote unquote missing in a hurricane that came to be 100% false. It was behind some kind of ploy or some kind of scheme. Just that quick, black people want to make up a scheme to get some kind of GoFundMe going or some kind of BS, and black folks just fed into it. But you know what white people do when they come to shit like that? They investigate, they research, and then they factualize, and then that's when they go ahead.
That is such a blanket statement. Oh my God! So
I'm just saying. Okay, let me tell you why it's true, and let me get into this, and I'm gonna get into the story. The situation with the Cobb County officer here in Atlanta. I commented on WSBT. They were the ones who actually, if it wasn't for them, that officer would have still had a job. But what happened was the majority of the white people that were commenting were saying they took time to realize that his tone and his delivery he was just being sarcastic, and why black people taking it so serious, or why black folks like, hell yeah, he's a racist, he's a Klans member, come on. Take time. Now, I'm not saying the man was right, no form of fashion. And I'm not saying, what he said was sarcastic or was being funny. It's just that why don't we just take the time to research and to understand? We just can't keep falling for the okie doke. I mean, that's...
but that's... with the media machine has sort of, seduced us into or made us lazy in terms of think of how many times articles are shared on social and people comment on them without reading them.
Yep.
You click in the article, you'll see it's like 4 years old. It's misleading. Yep. There's actually an article circulating right now about how the NFL is losing followers for the boycott, but you click and that article is from 2015.
Yep.
And it's just, that's a bigger issue. I don't think it's a racial issue. And I do think, it has to do with how people, them being smart enough and analytical enough to discern, to have the discernment to read. Like, if you're an adult and you go through life accepting at face value everything that's thrown in your path, and all, whether it's something on your job, bills or whatever, if you kind of operate through life without questioning, maybe challenging when it's necessary, you're going to have a hard life.
Yes.
So I think that's a bigger issue that stems from, poor education in this country, or, just people not really having a lot of experience outside of their small world, not going out and discovering and, being pushed out of their comfort zone.
Final, here's the thing, and I'm gonna close on this, and I thank you for tuning in and calling in too as well. Here's my final statement on this. It's troublesome that black people are so quick to jump on the bandwagon without research and without facts, that they come to the point where they just don't care.